Presley Gerber seemed bound for a good life. She was born into fame, money, and the legacy of a famous supermodel. But behind the glamorous red carpets and runways is a story of pain, defiance, and the search for who he was that made him careful with his life. Why did the son of Cindy Crawford, one of the world's most famous models, have to fight his own problems in the harsh light of fame? Stay tuned as we talk more about the terrible death of Presley Crawford, Cindy Crawford's son. A lot of stress is put on kids to grow up in the public eye. It was common for popular kids to be compared to other family members, and Presley was no different. Even though he had done well, Kaya's quick rise often seemed to overshadow him. Presley had a hard time because of these demands and the constant attention from the media. Kids whose parents are famous often have a hard time figuring out who they are, and Presley was no different. This made it hard for him to make his own way, because everyone was always looking at him. Be sure to check back as we talk about Presley Gerber's life and its sad events. Presley Walker Gerber was born in Brentwood, California, on July 2, 1999. Her father, Randall Gerber, used to be a model and is now a famous businessman. And Cindy Crawford, who is one of the main supermodels of all time. Rich people, beautiful people, and fashion were all around Presley right away because he was the oldest son of Randa Gerber and Cindy Crawford. It wasn't long before his younger sister Kaya Gerber became famous as a model, just like their mother did. Presley himself tried his hand at modeling, being in well-known magazines and walking famous catwalks. He was great for the job because he looked good and had family ties in the business. Behind the camera, though, Presley's problems were becoming clear. From the moment he was born, Presley's life was full of luck, chances, and fame. From the outside, Presley's early years looked like they were perfect. But soon, the problems that come with coming from a famous family will show that his life isn't as perfect as it seems. What could be wrong with him? Let's find out. A lot of Elvis Presley's childhood was spent in Malibu, California, a rich and beautiful beach town. The Gerber family's fancy home with a view of the Pacific Ocean was a peaceful place to be away from the busyness of Hollywood. In interviews, Cindy and Randy often talked about how they try to give their kids a realistic childhood. They taught them to work hard. They told their kids to follow their dreams and stressed how important family dinners are. People said that Presley was a friendly and outgoing boy who liked photography, fishing, and being outside. He was liked by many people at Malibu High School and did well in school. Presley also showed his artsy side by talking a lot about his love of photography on social media. His early Instagram photos showed that he loved taking pictures of Malibu's natural beauty, which suggested that he was thoughtful and reflective. Getting started in fashion, Presley's final move into modeling wasn't a surprise, since he grew up in the fashion business. With his tall height, sharp cheekbones, and intense blue eyes, he looks a lot like his dramatic parents. She made a deal with IMG Models, the same firm that worked with his sister and mother when he was in his late teens. Presley quickly made a name for himself in the business, walking the runways for well-known brands like Calvin Klein, Moschino, and Dolce & Gabbana. He sometimes went with his sister Kaya to fancy photo shoots and advertising efforts on the side. The pair is known as the Gen Z Crawford Gerber duo. People said they were undeniably stars and looked great in pictures. Modeling brought Presley fame, but it also taught him how the business works. Because fans and critics were watching and writing about every move he made, he had to be compared to Cindy and Kaya. Presley had both good and bad experiences with the attention she got from modeling. A lot of people knew Cindy Crawford as Presley's mother. She was on many magazine covers, catwalks, and commercials in the late 1980s and early 1990s. She became one of the first supermodels to become famous around the world and is still seen as a cultural icon because of how skilled and beautiful she was. Starting the tequila company Casamigos with George Clooney, he grew up with his younger sister Kaya Gerber, who was born in 2001. After getting her mother's good looks and natural modeling skills, Kaya quickly became a star in her own right. The Gerber family became a symbol of easy success because Cindy and Randa were often praised for their stable marriage and ability to balance being famous with family life. A young Presley saw his parents' jobs and learned about the money and fame that came with them. As a child, he went on expensive trips, went to parties where only invited guests could attend, and met important people. But even with these benefits, Presley would finally feel a lot of pressure to live up to the reputation of his family. But what part did his family play in how things turned out for him? Keep listening to find out. Cindy and Randy seemed to be close with their family and were interested in what their kids were doing. In conversations, Cindy talked about how she and Randy tried to keep Kaya and Presley safe from the risks of being famous. She often told stories about the things their family did, like playing board games and having pizza nights at home. Presley himself often showed how much he loved his parents by writing them sweet messages on social media on their birthdays or holidays. Besides that, he was also close with Kaya. The two brothers often did things together and supported each other's goals. But behind the flashy family photos and public roles, Presley began to have identity problems. Growing up in the same neighborhood as Kaya's quick rise to fame and Cindy's huge success probably made him feel like he wasn't good enough. Getting around was hard for Presley because he was a famous person. Living in the sun was especially hard for him. Even though his family was kind and supportive, it was hard to escape being compared to his mother and sister all the time and being watched closely on social media. From a very young age, Presley was aware of the expectations that were put on him. Anyone who knew him, whether he was acting or living his own life, was always keeping a close eye on him. There was a lot of pressure to keep up a good public image while going through the tough parts of puberty. Looking back, Presley's formative years helped him get ready for the problems he would face as an adult. Even though he seemed to have had a perfect childhood, the complicated way he was raised showed the bad sides of wealth and fame. All of these turned against him. Come with me as we look at some of his problems. As Presley got older, he started to show small signs of inner struggle, even though he often seemed calm and sure of himself in public. In some of his social media posts, he hinted at stronger emotions. He shared mysterious words and pictures that made you think that hinted at a deeper side of himself. Even though he was successful, Presley faced some unique problems when he first started working as a model. Presley seemed to be modeling out of job rather than interest, while Kaya seemed to be enjoying the practice. By the time Presley was in his early 20s, his supposedly perfect life began to fall apart. When Presley Gerber first started modeling, he had a clean, fresh face that made him look a lot like his famous mother. He also didn't have many scars. By 2020, the young model had bright tattoos on her arms, chest, and neck. But even though big tattoos are usually frowned upon in the modeling world, on social media, one tattoo in particular got a lot of attention. In 2020, Presley became famous after showing off the controversial tattoo on his face. Under his right eye, the word misunderstood was written in full. Fans and reviewers were both shocked by this choice, and a lot of them wondered if he was crazy. During an Instagram live video, Presley explained his choice by saying that the tattoo showed how he felt about his life and how other people saw him. He said, "I wouldn't have done this if I didn't want to or if I thought it would hurt my face in a real way." The tattoo became a symbol of his inner struggle and his fight for acceptance and understanding. His decisions, like getting a controversial and misunderstood face tattoo and getting in trouble with the law, showed that he was having a hard time finding out who he was. Presley's problems started to show up in his public life. He was caught driving under the influence DUI in 2019. His acts caused stress, and the event got a lot of attention from the media. This event seemed to be a turning point in Presley's life. The show made it clear that he was having problems behind the scenes, even though his parents were there for him. It was a sobering warning that fame or money can keep someone from having to deal with the consequences of their actions. Presley's actions were caused by a more important issue, his mental health. Even though he hasn't talked much about them, it's clear that Presley has had problems with loneliness, misunderstandings, and maybe even sadness. Having to live up to his family's image and being watched on social media must have made these worries even worse. When it comes to stars, people with mental health problems are often looked down upon because they are vulnerable, which can be seen as a sign of weakness. Even though he was having problems, he had an interesting personal life. Let's look into it. Presley Gerber, Cindy Crawford's son, is dating model Lexi Wood right now. It became known that they were dating when they made it official on Instagram in late 2024. Sharing sweet photos and videos of the couple, Presley talked about how happy he was and called Lexi the person that makes me the happiest I've ever been. In response, Lexi wrote about how much she loved him on social media. They met through common friends many years ago, and their relationship grew quickly. It had only been a little over a year when Gerber made their romance public on Instagram, making it look like he had proposed. "I did it, guys." That's what the model wrote next to a bunch of pictures of the two of them. In one picture, the pair was kissing on the sand while using a heart, an infinity sign, and a lock and key. Presley said that he had been interested in Lexi ever since they met. Within a week of their first meeting, he suggested that they take their relationship to the next level. They've been to events together since then, like the Casamigos Halloween party, where they planned their outfits and showed off to their families. Even though they aren't engaged yet, they have talked about moving in together and getting married in the future. Lexi has been called Presley's favorite person in public, and their friendship has been called natural and deeply loving. Wood shared the post again on her Instagram stories. The couple announced their breakup all of a sudden, less than a month after fans were happy for them. Their Instagram posts about each other were taken down after they broke up, according to E! News. A person close to Wood said that Lexi was ready to move on, even though she had been seen with Gerber a week before they broke up. It must have been terrible for Cindy Crawford and Randa Gerber to see their kids go through this. As parents, they have said they will always be there for Presley, but it is very painful to see a loved one in pain.